Hi you guys, welcome, välkomna, добро пожаловать. My name is Salmansa Rogers. Today it's Friday and that means another true crime stories for you. I'm finally back here in front of you guys in my cozy bedroom. Feels so good to be back. Definitely was not planning on being gone for like a month or maybe more. I don't know exactly, but it feels very good. It feels like I'm recharged. I have new stories for you guys, and it just feels amazing. Also, I do want to thank you guys for all the sweet messages while I was gone, saying that you guys missed my stories. I love listening to this channel, and just gives me more motivation to keep going because, again, this channel is pretty small. We are growing slowly but surely. And it feels nice to just, read comments saying that you guys really enjoy this type of content. It gives me more confidence and joy to record more videos. So again, thank you guys so much. So as you guys probably read by the title of this video, today's going to be another survival case. And like I mentioned before, I really enjoy researching and listening to survival stories. Of course, the victim went through probably one of the worst horrific domestic abuse that I ever read or heard of yet. So just a fair warning, it is going to be it's a brutal case, and some topics in this story are very graphic. So if you are a victim of domestic violence or this type of topic doesn't suit you right now, I totally understand, and I would recommend to maybe not listen to this video at the moment. You can always bookmark it, save it for later, but your mental health well-being is all that matters. So if this is not for you, please don't listen to this, as this content is very graphic and it's a very, very brutal case today. So just a fair warning. So my darlings, without any further ado, let's jump into today's case. So today's case takes place in 2011, April 20th, in a town called Hale, and it is located in United Kingdom. We are going to discuss the case of Tina Nash, and at the time of the events, she was 32-year-old. She was a single mother living together with her two children. In 2009, Tina was out and about with her friends, and she met a gentleman, and his name is Shane Jenkins. And the two, quickly kind of like hit it off. They kind of knew each other from before. They seen each other at the club scenes or what have you. And actually, one of Tina's friends warned her about this guy, Shane. She said that he is a very violent man. Basically, she described him as a psychopath, that he always tends to pick fights with random people, random strangers, and he's just, like not a type of guy you wanted to take home and raise your kids with. So Tina actually listened to her friend the first time around, but this time when she met him the second time in 2009, she saw a different side of Shane. She felt like he was more mature this time. He was more sweet and nice and caring. So she actually gave him a chance. They exchanged numbers and quickly, began dating. And soon they called each other boyfriend and girlfriend. Shane was very attentive and very romantic, very sweet. And he definitely knew how to, woo Tina. And the first few months, the honeymoon phase, it was wonderful. He got along with Tina's two kids, and they soon, began living with each other in Tina's apartment. But after the romance faded, after the honeymoon phase was over, Shane began to display some, very eyebrow-raising behavior. So Tina and Shane like to go out. They like to, be social, hang out with friends and drink. And every time Shane would be drunk, he would, just start picking fights with random strangers. And his thing was, stumping people's heads. So basically beat them to the ground and then start stumping on people's or the victim's head. And he actually attacked this man very brutally, and he caused him brain damage. So Shane began to display this violent behavior that Tina was very, starting to be concerned about, because she started to remember the warning that one of her friends told her about Shane, that he is typically known for this type of behavior, and she never saw it before until now. Soon after that, Shane began to attack Tina as well, and unfortunately, the beatings were very severe, and they were also in front of her two children. And at one point, Tina can recall, she actually caught Shane sleeping with one of her friends, and she confronted him about that, and basically said that it's over, I'm breaking up with you, I want you to leave this house immediately. And instead of, trying to win Tina back and apologize or what have you, or, just take your shit and leave, he actually started to attack Tina, start beating her. And when she was on the ground, on the floor, he sat over her and he put his two thumbs in her eye, try to like gouge her eyes out with his thumbs. And this was right in front of Tina's two children. Luckily, she was able to kick him off her, and he just left after that. Of course, he was very, very sorry for this type of behavior. He promised Tina that he would never do such a thing again. And a few weeks later, she took him back, and he was back in, moved into her apartment back again. But not long after that, Tina and Shane had another heated argument, and this time he beat her so badly that she actually had to be hospitalized. And this time she called the police on him and reported him to police. So they arrested Shane, and he was in jail. And it was, about to be trial or what have you. He was about to be sentenced. But he somehow convinced Tina that, please don't do this to me. It will ruin my life. I promise I'll leave you alone, or I'll never do this again. Whatever he promised her, it worked. So Tina went to the police and just said that I don't want to press any charges. And she kind of like blamed the whole situation on herself. She said that she actually was the one that caused this. She actually fell and hit her head or what have you. After taking back her claims, the police couldn't do anything about it, so they just dropped all the charges. So that brings us now to the fatal day of April 20th of 2011. And Tina, remember, on this day, Shane was extra sweet and extra nice, and he was like very, playful. He was playing with the children. They had a great day together, what have you. And she even thought to herself, like, wow, like this man can actually change. He can be a good, a father figure, a role model. Like he had the potential. So she was very pleased on that day with Shane and how he was acting and what have you. So around 10 p.m., Tina was in her bedroom, kind of like, preparing to go to bed and sleep. And she had the windows open, and she overheard Shane downstairs outside on the patio, because the windows, her bedroom windows were facing the patio. She had the window open so she could hear Shane and the neighbor talking, and Shane was offering this neighbor some sleeping pills. He's like, I had this sleeping pills. They're amazing. Like if you have insomnia, I would definitely recommend this. But yeah, anyway, so he was like offering this sleeping pills to this neighbor, and immediately Tina didn't like that idea. So when she heard Shane walking back into the apartment, she went downstairs to confront Shane, to tell him to not give these pills to the neighbor. And the main reason why she said that was because the second time that they had this when Shane violently attacked her and she called the police on him, the social services were also involved, and they kind of like gave her a warning that if something of this nature would happen again, you would lose your kids, because basically, they were displaying this violent behavior in front of the children. So giving the sleeping pills to the neighbor, God forbid something happens to the neighbor, he would call the police would be involved, and of course with the police comes the social services. So Tina was very worried about that. So her main concern was her children, and she didn't want to be involved in any, drug exchange between neighbors and Shane. So she kind of like told him not to do it. And instead of, taking it as a normal person and like, oh, okay, sorry, I didn't know that you were thinking that. Yeah, that's true. Let's not do it. Shane became extremely angry, and he started yelling and cursing at Tina and saying like, why do you always have to butt into my business, and go to sleep. You were about to go to bed. Why are you down here, meddling in my business or what have you. So, and Tina just felt defeated, and she's like, okay, you know what? I'm not about to start a fight, an argument in the middle of the night. The kids are sleeping, do whatever you have to do. So she kind of left him to do him, and she went back upstairs to go to sleep. And eventually she fell asleep. During the night, Tina woke up and she was feeling very, very weird. She couldn't move her hands or feet or legs. She was literally felt like she was stuck in a cocoon, and she also couldn't see anything. So she felt like, she was stuck in a cocoon with something covering her face. So she tried to move and make noises, like to get up, or like to see if Shane was around. But as soon as she did that, she could feel two large hands across her neck, and she felt like she was being strangled. The two large hands that Tina felt on her throat was Shane. He was sitting on top of her. He actually wrapped her around with the blanket on the bed that she had, and so she couldn't move. Her hands and feet were basically wrapped around in a blanket, and he put his hands on her and, strangled her. So he strangled her so hard that Tina fainted. The second time when Tina came into consciousness, she now kind of knew that, something is wrong, and she tried to get up, and she kind of mustered herself up, like sitting up, and she heard Shane again, like rushing. As soon as he heard her awake, she heard him rushing to her, and she understood that this is something had to do with him. He did something to her. He either punched her or what have you, or So she immediately like mustered the voice. So basically, her throat was also hurting because of the strangulation. So she mustered the voice, saying, "Shane, I'm sorry, I love you. Please don't do this." And as soon as she said that, he kind of like calmed down, and he unwrapped her from that blanket that she was wrapped around, and she could finally, sit up and move her limbs basically. And during the whole time that Shane was attacking her, or when she felt his hands around her neck, he didn't say a word. Except now, when she was free, he sat down next to her and said, "Your eyes are hanging out of your skull." At first, Tina thought this was some cruel joke, and she didn't believe him. But then she slowly kind of like, because she couldn't see still, she slowly started to kind of touch her face to see what's going on. Why can't she see? Why is everything dark? And she felt one of her eyeballs literally hanging from her skull, and then pushing on her cheek. And the other eye was completely swollen shut. She couldn't feel anything, and she couldn't see anything. So she immediately began to scream. She was panicking. She was scared. And Shane took her to the bathroom. He took her to the bathroom. He placed her in a tub. She was completely naked, all bloody. Her eyes, one of her eye were hanging, and out of her skull. And he turned on ice cold water, and he started kind of like putting her whole body with her head like immersed into the water. And because of the shock and the pain, all the nerves in her eyes, basically her eye were out, so all of the nerves in her eyeball was underneath the water, and the pain and the shock made her vomit and basically, defecate herself. The pain was unbearable, and the only thing that Shane told her during this time, when he was, putting her in and out, like her head, dipping her head in and out of the water, saying, "This is your fault. You did all of this. This is your fault. Look what you made me do." All because of some stupid pills. After a few minutes, Shane left Tina in the tub, and he left the bathroom, and Tina just sat there in great pain, her eyes still hanging out of her skull. She's like covered in her own feces, covered in her vomit, and she manages to get up of the tub. She kind of felt her way out of the bathroom, and when she exited the bathroom, she could hear Shane snoring downstairs on the couch. And at this point, Tina decided that she could feel her way out of the bathroom. She could definitely feel her way down the stairs, and she had a hammer in the kitchen, and she knew exactly where it was. And she said to herself, like, if I only make myself downstairs as quiet as possible, and I can get to the hammer, I know where it's at, and I can attack Shane and kill him on the couch. But then after, thinking over this plan, she kind of decided against it, because it was risky. In case Shane wake up and he sees that she's trying to do this, he would probably kill her. He would probably kill her and her children. Mind you guys, her 2 children were still sleeping in the bedroom next door. All of this commotion happening, I don't know how, but they managed to sleep it through. They were right next door in their own bedroom. After deciding not to attack Shane with the hammer, Tina went back to the bedroom. She felt her way through the walls, what have you. She went back to the bedroom, sat on the bed, and she basically started wiping off her nose. But at some point, she realized that her nose were extra runny, so she didn't understand what was going on, and she started to pull on on the kind of like the mucus, basically pull it out of the nose. But then she realized that she wasn't pulling the mucus. She was actually pulling out her eye, and that was like the eye nerves and all of that, that was connecting your eye. So now she basically had her eye and all of its nerves, whatever, in her hands. After a while, Shane woke up, and it's now around 7 a.m. He went upstairs to the bedroom where Tina was sitting there, in immense amount of pain and in shock. She's naked. She's still covered in feces and vomit and what have you. And he came next to her, sat next to her, and he started to basically pet her eye, like the eye that she had in her skull and her hand now. He started to rub it and saying, "See, this is all your fault. All of this is your fault. You made me do this. All of it is because of those stupid pills. You should have never said anything." Tina managed to convince Shane to call one of her baby daddies. His name is Peter, and to call Peter to come over and help with the kids, because she basically, she needed emergency care. She also pleaded with Shane, saying that, "I would not tell anyone that you did this to me. I would say that this happened of a random attack. What have you, just please let me call Peter, and he would, get me help." And somehow Tina actually convinced Shane, so he let her call Peter, and by the tone of Tina's voice, he could definitely hear that something was severely wrong. So he rushed over to Tina's house. The first thing he did was to check on the children. They were safe asleep in the bedroom. And then he kind of woke them up, and he took them to Tina's bedroom without knowing the severity that Tina was in, and that she was, naked with no eyes and what have you. And upon, entering her room, Tina heard Peter's and the kid's voice. So she quickly turned her head away just so the kids won't see her face. And as she quickly turned her face away so the kids won't see how she looked on her face, one of her other eye actually fell off onto the bed. And Peter, at this point, took the kids out and he called the paramedics. The paramedics arrived. They, quickly gave Tina some pain relief medicine, much needed pain relief, and, rushed her to the hospital. And after 12 hours, the doctor tried to save Tina's vision, but she got the devastating news that she is now permanently blind. And the first thing she thought it was, oh my God, I would never see my children again. Huge manhunt began for Shane Jenkins, and after a day, they found him, they arrested him. During the trial, Shane and his lawyer Shane pleaded not guilty due to reason of insanity, and his lawyer claims that Shane was, not himself. He is, dealing with mental health issues, and that it was actually Tina that was attacking Shane that night. He was just, kind of defending himself, and he accidentally fell on top of her when they were wrestling or fighting, and his thumbs accidentally came on her face and gouged her eyes out. Yeah, that was the excuse that the lawyer claims, happened. That's the excuse that they were going for. But of course, they had a lot of evidence that actually Shane tried to hide that night. The police later, when they were investigating the apartment, found a bloody, soaked sheet. The blood belonged to Tina. And they actually also saw that the bed, basically the bed boards, the boards underneath your bed, basically that holds the bed up, the mattress up, were broken. So they could determine that Shane, when he was on top of Tina, gouging her eyes out with the thumb, he used such a force that he broke the bed, basically. Shane got life in prison with minimum of 6 years before he could apply for parole. His parole was actually up this year of 2022, but of course he was denied parole. He also did a little interview from prison with one of the reporters in UK, and he claims, again, he's innocent. She was the one that started it all. And he says that he is not the monster that everyone claims him to be. He's actually a very chill guy. Tina is now living with her kids, and she has like an assistant that helps her out with her daily, chores or daily, daily life, basically, take care of the kids or what have you. She's slowly adapting to her life without vision. She wrote a book called Out of the Darkness. If you guys are interested to read about her story, you can find her on Amazon. So just, type in Out of the Darkness, Tina Nash, and you will find the book. And, she is basically, of course, it took her a good amount of years to finally kind of like accept her fate. And she does regret that she didn't break off things with him in the first place, or when the first attack happened, and that if her warning basically to other victims that are in an abusive relationship, whether you're a man or a woman or what have you, is to, her thing was that she could change him. She believed that she could change Shane and to become a better man, and she forgave him because she felt sorry for him. And she remembered how the good Shane was in the beginning, and she felt like she could get that Shane back. But unfortunately, people like that will never change. That, my dear friends, is the case of Tina Nash and the monster that is called Shane Jenkins. I hope he rots in prison. I hope he never will get out of there, because in my opinion he is a danger to society. Now I'm curious to hear if you have heard of the story. What do you guys think? Please leave a comment below. I love to read your thoughts. And if you do have another case suggestion for me, leave them in the comments below. I always read my comments. And remember, please stay nice and positive, because this is true crime stories. This is real people, real families that has been affected by this. So, you would not want no one talking bad about your family. So, kind of think twice before you say anything mean. It's been a pleasure. And again, I'm so happy to be back here sitting and talking to you guys. And I cannot wait till next Friday. Until then, please stay safe, take care of yourself. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Ciao, cacao.